Performance of the Week. It's brought to you by Healthspan Elite. Healthspan Elite is the first sports nutrition partner of the All Blacks. For the last 5 years, the team has been supplementing their diet with Healthspan Elite products to support their health and aid performance. The range is specifically developed to provide trusted, batch-tested supplements, giving peace of mind that they are safe to take. Guys, start with you, Bryn. Who's your Performance of the Week, or what is your Performance of the Week?
Performance in the game, or do you want to talk about Harbour for the next 10, 15 minutes? Look, I was actually really, the Performance of the Week was the Australians. You know, we talked a lot of hype around how they were going to play, what were they going to be like. And look, there was some individual performance. I thought Dinguna, we've talked about him as well, but for me personally, as a halfback, the performance of Nick White was second to none in tough conditions, and he showed a lot of versatility in his game when it came to running, his passing, and then his kicking game as well, as Jip has alluded to as well with his execution of that. So, Nick White was bloody impressive for me, mate. So he's my moment of the week.
For me, I actually found this hard to pick. I've been thinking about it, and I was thinking, man, there's so many to pick from. But I suppose for the week, Dave Rennie. I think he's had to travel. He hasn't been in the environment, and he's put a game plan and personnel in place, and giving guys opportunities. And I would say first job as Test, he'd be pretty happy. So I think Dave Rennie for the Performance of the Week for me.
It's solid. You can't go against that, can you?
No, I just think, man, it's probably underestimated how. Like you're always going to see a spike. I know people say it. You always see a spike when there's a change of coach, and he's straight away already thinking about, no, we've got it. 80 minutes won't make it. It's all those sorts of things that I'm like, that's why for me he got Performance of the Week. It's just, I like the cut of his jib, and I like the adjustments he's making. And
mate, Joe, I think that you've talked about it, that messaging, his messaging to the group. I think we've seen a little bit in the past with the Checker. Obviously, very emotional, and the Richter scale goes up and down. So, it's good for your media, Ross. Us in the media, mate. Obviously, good storylines. But look, I think when you've got a coach that just has that just very level, like calmness, and you talk around a great performance. If you're thinking about it, a bloody good performance against a good New Zealand team. And he's already talking around, we were good, but again, we need to back it up. Last time we did this, we lost by 30 points. So I guess having that accountability and that giving that mindset into the group and changing some certain things around behavioural attitudes, look, it's just going to grow for them. And look, what a great test match it's going to be at a sold-out Eden Park. So, we're very excited for the first one, Jip, but the second one's going to be even better, mate.
I'm really excited. I just want to quickly touch on that point, because I think it's a key point around Rennie's prep going into this game. The fact that in the post-match press conference, he's like, we won in Perth, and then 36-0 a week later in Albert. So that's how far, he's gone back probably 2 years of footage and watched over and come in with an idea of where he can change, knowing the personnel. That's the in-depth work that, you probably don't see from a coach like him, the people wouldn't know what, to know those facts and the statistics, and to talk about it, he's done his homework to make sure, that's, I don't know, that if I was an Aussie Wallaby fan, I'd just be frothing. I'd be so excited.
Yep. He had a good feel for what Aussie rugby's strengths are. Like we talked earlier about the amount of time and phase play that they were able to build and build and build and build. When I think about the great Aussie teams that I've watched over the years, they've been incredible at quick ball and multiple phases. And in the late 90s, outrageous amount of phases.
Yeah.
And if you can take the combative Dave Rennie style and combine it with that Aussie natural instinct, and he seems to have done that fairly well first up.
Well, I think that's his thing, is he doesn't want to be, I suppose, a Kiwi coach that tries to turn the Wallabies into a Kiwi rugby team, because that's not their way of playing the game. So I think he's smart enough to know that he's got to coach the little detail around the style that's going to fit the personnel. And that's what I think makes him a great coach, is he always coached to the cattle he's got, rather than trying to coach to a way that he thinks was right. Yep. So that's why it makes it so good. He's so flexible in his methods, but he keeps things simple as well.
I think we can't underestimate his time there when we went over to the Northern Hemisphere as well. So yep, he had the New Zealand attacking brand that he's coached from Manawatu to the Chiefs, and
That's
then
true.
and then now he went overseas, and Northern Hemisphere rugby is a little bit more set piece orientated, and kicking off 9 and 10 a little bit more around percentage plays. And I don't think we can't underestimate that time that he spent over there. He could to take a few little gold nuggets that he'd take from there and then implementing it into games very specifically. If you think about the game on the weekend, wet, windy, very similar to Northern Hemisphere and conditions. So having that kind of understanding of I have to been in very similar positions with different cattle. And then we talk around with what you said, Chip, being able to understand that what the cattle that you have, and I'm not trying to play one certain style that I have at the Chiefs. It might be different that it was when he was at Glasgow, and now different in the Wallabies. So I completely agree on that, Chip, understanding his cattle that he has, and then being able to put a game plan that works to his strengths of his team that he's coaching.
And we touched on it earlier as well, the level-headed approach that he has. When I think of a lot of the top coaches in recent years, whether it be Hansen or Checker or Eddie Jones, these guys who are almost front and center, like they're almost bigger than their team in some ways. Dave Rennie's not that guy. He manages to be the go-to guy without being the guy who attracts headlines, without all of those things. And that must be great for a young group of players to kind of maybe have a better feel for what is required from them. You don't necessarily, when you're rebuilding, want to see some guy who's out there showboating in the press conferences and being the superstar of the side, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, he doesn't over-promise and under-deliver either. Like he keeps his cards close to his chest and what he wants to achieve. But like we were saying earlier, when he gets asked a question, he answers it and he moves on. But he answers it in 2 or 3 words. He doesn't try to be the headline. He just goes about his work. He's like a grafter, like a grafting rugby player. They just constantly work and probably don't get the reward. But they're the guy that hits, 40 rucks, 50 rucks a game and makes 15 tackles. And, sort of like a Matt Phillip, who I thought was a surprise package yesterday, the amount of carries he had. And, you would have thought it would go more to the Samos and the, and Tupou and that. But I thought he was a surprise package in the amount he carried and the effectiveness of how he carried. But that's the style of player that Dave Rennie likes, because it's just that grafter, and that's what he's like as well. He just wants to sit in the background, he does his work, and then he lets his work do the talking.
Yeah, well, if you think about in the time at the Chiefs, Chip, those kind of players, what was his name? Is the captain Clark?
Yeah, Craig Clark.
Yeah, Craig Clark. Players like that. We're talking around grafting and guys that don't get that don't get the rewards or the headliners for doing, scoring tries or having extract or anything like that. Guys that know what you're going to get, consistent understanding of what the team needs from you. And so I think, Dave Rennie always has a great feel and selects those players pretty well, and I think if you think at we talk about Checker, a guy that's really good on the opposite is Eddie Jones. Eddie Jones has got a really good ability, and I think the positive thing you can, if you have a coach like that, it takes all the heat off the team. So if you've got a bad performance in the game, if you've got a coach that wants to take the heat, and I think Eddie Jones on the other side is probably a guy that pushes the boundaries where it's good, but then obviously can have its bad things around it. But I think having a demeanor coach like Dave, makes it just easier for the boys as well.
Are we being, because we're talking him up so much, we just being smart, setting him up for a fall here? Because I think if he was listening to this, he'd just be like, oh my God, they're setting him up for failure. I've probably gone on about it too much, but it's exciting for where he can take the Wallabies, I think.